Set in the distant future, the planet is overrun by unholy beasts and violent creatures. The very population of humanity is at stake, and it may even be too late. So it's up to one man, one warrior, one soldier, an ordained defender of mankind to uphold the indomitable fighting spirit and spread the guts and viscera of foe and monster alike, all in the name of humanity. Does this sound familiar? In modern day, pop culture is king, and there's something out there for everybody. If you're a superhero fan, you've got movies, comics, and games. If you're a horror fan, you've also got your own movies, books, and games. If you're a thriller fan, romance fan, sci-fi, fantasy, if you want fiction, there's a creator somewhere out there creating it. And a decent one going around is the almighty action genre. It may not result in the most intellectually stimulating content, but I don't know a single person who doesn't cheer when John Wick kills 439 people because of a puppy. There's something so cathartic to your average person about justice being served, and extreme violence being justified. And the most pure and unadulterated form of this is the super soldier setup. At least that's what I call it. It varies in lore and in appearance, but the past decade or so has given us so much content, especially games, with armor-clad, muscled-up, and gun-toting heroes crushing the skulls of demons and aliens and other various denizens under their boots. Doom, Gears of War, Helldivers, Ultra Kill, Space Marine, Half-Life, Turbo Overkill, Crisis, Dust, Titanfall, Republic Commando, Dead Space, Wolfenstein, and of course, Halo. I'm sure there's dozens and even hundreds more examples, especially once you start looking not just at games, but movies, shows, and comics. But I'm not saying anything new, am I? Duh, people, especially testosterone-having boys, are gonna love buff guys with guns killing bad guys. I mean, that's what they want to be, but there has been a major trend that can't be ignored. It's not just action heroes, it's a very specific and cathartic reason for the influx of armored warriors and the high demand for them. But before I even explain why, we have to ask, is that a good thing or a bad thing? But before we get into it, I need to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, Aura! Over 2.9 billion records were stolen from National Public Data recently, putting vital pieces of personal information, like your full name, address, and date of birth, phone number, and even social security number at risk. It's like the most comically evil thing I've ever heard, except it's not comical at all, and having your private info online for anyone to see can be seriously dangerous. But look, no matter how cautious we may be, unless your last name is Flintstone, you're gonna be online, and that comes with some inherent risks. Luckily, we don't have to worry thanks to Aura. Aura monitors your personal data, including your social security number, across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records, to help detect and prevent any potential identity theft. They provide up to $5 million buccarinos in identity theft insurance should the worst case scenario happen, and they also provide a bunch of other features to keep you safe online, all inside one app. You can go to my link, aura.com/whoknowswhat, to try a 14-day free trial, which is more than enough time for Aura to check if your information is at risk. Again, that's aura.com/whoknowswhat. It's a free trial. What are you doing? Go now! Thanks enough for Aura for being crazy enough to sponsor me, and we're back to the regularly scheduled ramblings. There's a few different angles to answer this question from, and I think we should use Occam's razor and start with the simplest one, and that being, it's easy. Super soldiers are easy. I mean, think about it. From a storytelling standpoint, it answers so many fundamental questions for a game or a film in which a protagonist needs to be capable of taking on numerically superior foes. Some new dangerous experiment, power armor, ancient magic, or special training causing our hero to be the hero. Although this explanation is simple, and I'm sure it's relevant to a lot of the examples I'd mentioned earlier, I don't think it's the only plausible answer. I mean, look at Star Wars: The Clone Wars and Helldivers. The soldiers that they focus on aren't always the elite heroes. They're the cannon fodder, the copy and paste designs that are dusted in the background. I mean, the average Helldiver is killed 2 minutes after deployment. I'm not kidding, I actually looked that up. As invigorating as this game is, they are far from elite soldiers, like I'd mentioned before, which leads me to my second and slightly concerning explanation, and that being allegiance. Hear me out on this one. I think that there is an innate desire in all of us to have a cause, a reason, and especially one that we aren't alone in. That being said, some of the most popular super soldiers, like the Warhammer Space Marines, the Helldivers, Clone Troopers, are under a united governing figure. and said figure usually has some sort of ideology or rhetoric that encourages violence or combat efficiency for the sake of defending freedom, humanity, the image of God, what have you. It's the sort of thing that they're satirizing in the film Starship Troopers, and this is where things start to get a little concerning. You see, there's nothing wrong with the sense of camaraderie that oozes out of every pore of Space Marines or Helldivers. That being said, the obvious Starship Troopers style inspirations are for a particular reason. You see, the qualities exhibited by these fictional governing bodies mimic those of some not-so-fictional governing bodies. Fascism, dictatorship, propaganda, control. You see, these words can put all these armor-bound soldiers and explosions and gunfire in a new perspective, taking them from the combat romp of every teenage boy's dream to a more 1984-style dystopian future where your value is measured in blood spilled for the Holy Empire. When you open Helldivers 2, it always plays what is clearly meant to be a piece of enlistment propaganda, and according to voice lines from the game, God has been exchanged for liberty. Which, controlling religion and belief, doesn't sound like an aspect of freedom, now does it? Many other famous games do similar things in which you, as the player character, are performing duties for the sake of a ruling figure. I simply use Helldivers as an example due to how overt the examples are. That being said, should we be afraid? Should we be concerned at the hundreds of thousands, potentially millions, of people playing games that worship dictatorships and exalt fascism? Not just that, but the communities surrounding these games almost never recognize the irony in their behavior surrounding these experiences, and they completely succumb to the fake propaganda and act as if every fictional act is justified. They never bother questioning their rulers. So what does this mean? Nothing. It doesn't actually mean anything. I'm not going to add any more fluff or pretend we have anything to fear. The super soldier syndrome isn't some wave of fascist apologists or some coup by the powers that be to propagandize our media into making us more susceptible to control. It's fun. What people are having is fun. Out of the two excuses I'd mentioned, I find the first one to be the most viable across the board. That being that game developers simply use the super soldier trope as a writing tool to get across a reason that your character is eviscerating aliens and monsters of all kinds. Sure, some of the examples from earlier have some strange ruling figures, such as the Emperor from Warhammer and Super Earth from Helldivers, but let's be real, we engage in these worlds to escape from the real one, so who cares if the fictional government has some concerning methods? We all know the real one does too. You will still find me on the battlefield fighting for freedom and spreading terminated guts across the landscape. The worst thing we can do is get our undies in a bunch because we're taking video games too seriously. I know that's ironic coming from someone who writes video essays on games on a regular basis, but I think you still get my meaning. I think the importance of these ruling figures in these games is to bring a sense of camaraderie between the players and fictional soldiers. The overarching causes that you fight for might be played for laughs like in Helldivers or serve some larger purpose like in the Clone Wars, but by far the most vital aspect of this recurring inclusion is bringing people together for a common purpose with a common enemy for a common motive. And I know I've been poking at the same few examples as they're the most pertinent, but this can be applied to Doom, Gears of War, Half-Life, Titanfall, Halo. They all have themes of fighting for your brothers and sisters against a vile and fading force. It's a phenomenal motivator that opens several doors in the storytelling and gameplay department. So, does the game development space suffer from super soldier syndrome? My diagnosis? Absolutely. It is incurable, inoperable, and incredible. Not only has the trope been stretched in many manners and styles to fit genres and time periods, it's also inspired independent creators since classic games like Castle Wolfenstein and the original Doom were played by people who grew up to become developers of their own. They created works that were influenced by and improved upon those games. Ultrakill, Dusk, Turbo Overkill are all independent games, and great ones at that. Now, younger gamers will play those games and be inspired to create their own amazing works in the future, and the cycle will continue. And sure, most genres and tropes operate the same ways. That being said, there is something special about the Masked Warrior. Iconic characters like Doomguy, Master Chief, Isaac Clarke, being great characters on their own but also acting as our avatars, the helmet hiding their individuality so we can be the soldier. We can fight for and save the world, blow the bad guy's head to bits, what have you. I think that brings a special kind of catharsis, but just always remember, games are not a replacement for reality. It's just a way to make the downtime in reality a little more fun. So be the hero, be the warrior, be the super soldier. Not just on the battlefield, but in life as well. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it if you made it all the way to the end, and also thank you again to Aura for sponsoring this video. I think it's insane that I have grown enough to actually catch the eye of sponsors. Also thank you to IntrepidandBold and UnchangingJimmy for being my channel members, it means the world. And if you chose to like and subscribe, it means the world, and I appreciate anyone who's willing to support me. I don't know why anyone would listen to me talk, but I'll do it as long as people will listen. Have a good day, and God made you special, and he loves you very much. Bye-bye.